Welcome back to App Stories. Today's show is brought to you by Vitally. I'm John Voorhees, and with me is Federico Viticci. Hey, Federico.
Hello, John. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Federico, in the pre-show today, we talked all about AI tools and a little bit about our evolving views on it and some of the things that we've been testing. It was kind of fun.
Yeah, and it's the kind of conversation that it's perfect for App Stories Plus. It's something we're thinking about. We're not fully committed to any of these AI services yet, but we're thinking about it. We are experimenting, and it's perfect for this week's episode because we're also going to talk about our nerd geeky experiments that we have coming up for the holiday break. It's something that we did last year, and it was super fun, and we figured, let's do it again because as you can imagine, John and I, we have a long list of things we want to play around with for later once things settle down a little, we have Mac Story Selects coming up, there's the end of the year coming up, and other projects that we need to wrap up. But once things settle and we take a couple of weeks off, that's the perfect time to try a few holiday projects. Usually these are weekend projects, but with the holiday break, they can go a little longer and they can be a little more detailed. So it's fun to talk about them before.
Absolutely. And if you're interested in that pre-show, you can join Club Premiere by going to plus.club or just subscribe to App Stories Plus alone at appstories.plus. There you'll find more information about how we deliver the show every week, early, extended, and ad-free to all of our listeners. All right, Federico, let's dive into nerding out for the holidays because I'm really excited to hear about what you've got in store. And I have a kind of fun project that I'm really excited about personally. So
why don't you go first with that fun project?
All right.
Hear more about that.
All right. So this is a project that's been on my plate for a while. I was digging around. When we moved into this new place last fall, you have these, boxes of stuff. And I got rid of an awful lot when I moved. But I did keep a device that I have a lot of nostalgia for because it's my very first ever Apple device, which is my 5th generation iPod Video, which I think came out in 2005, if I've got my dates right. In any event, I've got it. The battery is completely shot. The screen is damaged. It has a strip of missing pixels in the upper right-hand corner. And it's basically, at this point, unusable. But I can, if I plug it in, and I do still have a 30-pin connector, cable to charge it. If I plug it in and get it charged up enough, it does still work. And so I've decided to restore my iPod Video. One of the things that's kind of funny about this, I guess, is that it's a little bit of a time capsule because once Apple Music came out, I really stopped buying music altogether. And so I don't own a lot of modern music. So, when did Apple Music come out? It was a long time ago now.
2015.
Right. So it's been, 8 years. And so the last 8 years, I really don't have any purchased music, and you can't download Apple Music streamed songs to an iPod. So I've been thinking about that whole process. I did go and find all my purchased music in Apple Music and download it locally and start syncing it to this iPod so that I could see what I've got and how much I've got. And then I thought to myself, what I'll probably do, and this is kind of getting to why I'm doing this. Part of it's nostalgia. Part of it's I've enjoyed a lot in the last year using apps like Longplay and the widget albums, which allow you to, save favorite albums and play them end to end. And so, we've talked about this before. I'm much more of, I think, a playlist and singles person than you are. You're more of an albums person. But I think that the albums approach has grown on me a little bit in 2023. And so having created a collection of a dozen or so albums that I like to cycle through recently in the Albums app and doing something similar in Longplay, I thought, you know what, maybe I'll buy those albums, download them, put them on this iPod, and make this iPod my music player for a while. Now, it's not something I'm probably going to use a lot, but I thought it would be a fun project and also be a good opportunity to write something about. So here's what I'm going to do. I've already ordered all my parts.
Wow. Okay.
I've ordered, and I'm hoping the last one I think will come like the day after Thanksgiving, which is next Friday or this Friday, as most people listen to this. And I'm hoping to be able to do this over the Thanksgiving holiday and kind of get my kids involved in it too, so that we can kind of do it as a group project. This is a very nerdy family thing, but I think my two of my three kids will probably enjoy doing this. So what I've ordered is a new screen because it's damaged. I've ordered a new battery, and I've actually ordered two batteries, Federico, because when I started the research, I found a replacement battery on iFixit, and it's an 850 milliwatt hour battery, which is, a pretty small battery by most standards. But then I was shopping for some other parts and discovered that there's this whole subculture on Reddit and other places of people who are trying to cram the very largest battery they possibly can into an iPod.
There's always a subculture for anything on the internet these days.
There is. So I found another site that was selling a 3,000 milliwatt hour battery that will fit into an iPod, fifth generation. So I ordered that too. These parts, I think this project in total will actually be somewhat spendy, but the individual parts aren't. Like most of these things, like the screen for an iPod is like $20 or something like that. And the battery is maybe $20 or $30. It's not, most of this stuff isn't super expensive, but in any event, so I got a screen, I got a battery. I have ordered a card that you can put in to the iPod that replaces the hard drive with micro SD cards. And it's there's a site that does this called iflash.xyz. And they make several different boards with different micro SD and SD card slots on them. Everything from 1 to 4. And I ordered the 4, which is like $40. And you basically put in 4 micro SD cards and they can be of various sizes. And it's treated as a single hard drive. And because they're, obviously the storage of SD cards is a lot greater than any of these small hard drives that were in iPods, you can get a lot more music onto your iPod. There are limits because the database and the RAM on an iPod can only handle so many tracks. But, this kind of storage is pretty cheap right now. So I got the quad micro SD card board to put in there, which I'll put some micro SD cards in, which will greatly increase my storage. I don't need it, but I went ahead and bought 4 256 gig micro SD cards, so I'll have a full terabyte of data on my iPod, which is kind of wild to think about, which I probably will never fill. And then I went a step further. I decided that the faceplate needed replacing on this iPod because it's very scratched up. I kind of like.
Is this even going to be an iPod at the end of this process?
Well, it'll still have the original click wheel, headphone jack, logic board, and back. I like the back. I like the steel back. It's very scratched up. It has kind of a nice, though, patina to it from that. It's very, very roughed up because this iPod was mine I used this for years commuting. And then I gave it to one of my kids too. So it's kind of been through hell. But the front is plastic and it's very scratched up, which, there's the front case has a clear window that goes on top of the screen so that that being scratched up actually makes seeing the information on the screen a little worse. So I thought I'd replace it. And instead of replacing it with another black front plate like I have now, I ordered a clear front plate so I can see the electronics underneath. You can also do this sort of thing with click wheel, but I decided not to replace the click wheel. I thought I'd leave that there. I feel like this is already going to have enough things replaced on it. But I ordered a faceplate. And then the top thing I did, I dug into the Bluetooth subculture on Reddit and found the ultimate 30-pin Bluetooth connector that is very tiny and slim and fits on the bottom of the iPod and allows you to use Bluetooth headphones with it. Because as much as I just know myself, I'll want to use my AirPods. I'm not going to want to always plug in over-the-air headphones with a cord. and which I'll do, but I wanted it to be more versatile than that. So I can maybe even go out for a walk and bring it with me and, leave my iPhone behind and rely on my Apple Watch for notifications and listen to my music on this iPod. So it turns out that was the most expensive piece of this puzzle. The Bluetooth adapter was like $75 or something. So I've got stuff coming from, at this point, I think 4 different companies that should all be arriving. I've got the micro SD cards because those were quick from Amazon. But this other stuff is going to take a little while. And hopefully I'll be here within about a week.
What a project. Now, this is a proper do-it-yourself project. I mean, you're putting together a brand new device, essentially.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to it. I think it'll be fun. I mean, it's kind of a frivolous project in the sense that my iPhone is what I'm going to continue to listen to most of my music on, but I thought it would be cool to kind of test this out and see how it works. And it syncs perfectly fine with my Mac. That's why I was testing everything out to make sure that it still basically worked. And I listened to a little music on it. But yeah, I'm excited about it. I think it's going to be fun to do.
Very nice.
This episode of App Stories is brought to you by Vitally. Customer success teams today are facing a problem. How do they connect customer data back to their work? Vitally changes that. It's a new kind of customer success platform. An all-in-one collaborative workspace that combines your customer data with the capabilities you expect from today's project management and work platforms. Because it's designed for today's customer success team, that's why Vitally operates with unparalleled efficiency, improves net revenue retention, and delivers best-in-class customer experiences. It's the solution to helping your customer success team keep a better pulse on your customers, which maximizes productivity, visibility, and collaboration. You can boost your bottom line by deriving more revenue per customer with Vitally. And if you take a qualified demo, Vitally will give you a free pair of AirPods Pro. So if you're a customer success decision maker actively seeking OS solutions, working at a B2B software as a service company with 50 to 1,000 employees, and you're willing to explore changing customer success platforms if you already have one in place, schedule your call by visiting vitally.io/appstories and get a free pair of AirPods Pro. That's vitally.io/appstories for a free pair of AirPods Pro when you schedule a qualified meeting. Our thanks to Vitally for their support of the show.
All right, so my list of things is pretty simple. To be honest with you, the first thing I want to do is I need to figure out my battery situation. So this is quite timely since you wrote about external battery packs in last week's issue of Mac Stories Weekly, and I've also been thinking about batteries myself. And I think it's come down to 3 batteries. And the reason why this happened is that there's been an evolution in my setup since I published that story about using Orion on the iPad. And the iPad has an external display for my Nintendo Switch. So I've been using for years now the covered dock mini, which is a Genki accessory for the Nintendo Switch that replaces the dock of the Nintendo Switch with what looks like a tiny USB power adapter that you plug into a wall socket. And that power adapter has an HDMI out port and a USB-C cable. And that can be used as a Nintendo Switch dock. And obviously that requires to be plugged into a wall socket, which led me to the Omni 20 Plus battery that I wrote about on Mac Stories. And that's the battery I've been using for a while now. Now, before that, I was using the Anker 737 battery, I think, which is the large, what is it, 20,000 milliamp per hour battery?
I think it's more than that. I think it's more like 28 or something. Yeah, 26 or something like that. Because I have one that's a similar size, not that model, but similar size.
Yeah, that's the one I've been using for a while. Then I got the Omni 20 Plus, since it had support for plugging in any device with a standard sort of 2-prong electrical plug for the US, and there's also a European version. Since publishing that story, I was made aware by a Mac Stories reader that a few years have now passed since the introduction of the Nintendo Switch. And if you recall, in the first years of the Nintendo Switch, all these like alternative docks started popping out, and most of them would actually brick your Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, it was a bad scene.
It was a bad scene, and Nintendo was doing some custom things with the USB power profile of the Nintendo Switch. And so if you got one of those shady sort of docks from Amazon, from unknown Chinese companies usually, there was a serious risk of like overheating and bricking your Nintendo Switch. But the Nintendo Switch came up 6 years ago, more than 6 years, almost 7 in March. And now I was told that there's a whole market of actually legit Nintendo Switch dock replacements that don't require to be plugged into an electrical outlet, into a wall socket at all.
Oh.
And I gotta tell you, John, I got one of these and it worked. And I immediately got a second one. So that now I have one for my bag and one for my nightstand. And that eliminated the need to use a wall socket in the first place. So I got this. It's essentially a tiny Nintendo Switch themed dongle. It's almost the size of the Apple video adapter. It's a dongle that plugs into the Nintendo Switch over USB-C. And on the dongle, you have USB-C for power,
and HDMI,
right? And a USB-A port. And you can just use that, provide your own USB-C power, and then run an HDMI cable from the dongle to whatever you want to use, whether it's a display or a capture card or whatever. And you don't need to plug it into a wall anymore. And I can tell you, John, I've been running my Nintendo Switch with this new dongle, power being provided by an external battery pack, and Nintendo Switch video going to Orion or going to my X-Real glasses, and it works. And so that discovery made me reevaluate, do I even need something like the Omni 20 Plus at this point? Because I no longer have a need for a battery that has a support for a two-prong electrical outlet. And
well, knowing you'll still put the Omni to good use because you've got other little mobile gaming and work gadgets around that maybe will need it. But two things, I have two comments. One, link me up because I want to get one of these.
Oh yeah.
And two,
incoming.
Yeah, exactly. And two, do you have any feel for how much power it draws? Like how big a battery do you really need to use to get a decent amount of gameplay out of it?
Oh, usually when I was using the Omni, I noticed that the Switch was pulling, like 8 or 9 watts. I could be.
Oh, that's not much. Yeah,
it's not much, and I guess it also depends on how low the battery is on the Nintendo Switch, what kind of game you're playing, how much you're tasking the CPU and the GPU at that point. Yeah. So I guess it depends. But yeah, I'm sending you the link to the product that I got from Amazon in Italy, and I guess you can just find a similar equivalent on Amazon US.
Yep.
I'm also keeping an eye on, there's this new battery that Anker makes, which is slightly bigger than the 737. I think it's called the Anker Prime battery. And the capacity is pretty much the same. However, it supports higher output in terms of watts. I believe it can output up to 100 watts over USB-C. And the best part, this Anker Prime battery comes with a special pin connector at the bottom, which almost looks like the Apple Smart Connector that allows you to charge the battery by placing it on a charging base that is sold separately. And that's a really interesting idea. Because
really
I'm thinking I could put that base on my nightstand, always keep the battery there, and when I need it, just take it off the base and it's always charged, and there doesn't have to be a cable sort of floating around keeping the battery charged. And I'm pretty sure this Anker Prime battery, for some reason, also comes with Bluetooth and has an app on the iPhone that allows you to check the battery using an app.
Oh, sure. Phone. Yeah. It's probably sending that over Bluetooth so you can see what the percentage charge is and stuff like that. That's kind of cool. No, I mean, last week I wrote all about batteries for Club Mac Stories, and I'm a big believer in having a variety of sizes of batteries and using them in different ways
Yeah.
to just kind of untether yourself from a desk or whatever it is. Even if you're just using them around the house, it's way more convenient, I think, to have a battery connected to a short cable than it is to be plugging things in and out of the wall.
Yeah. All right. What's next on your list?
All right. Next on my list is something I've been doing the last couple of years at this time of year, which is Obsidian plugins, and just generally re-exploring Obsidian, because I guess in 2023, my use of Obsidian was fairly straightforward and simple. I really used it mainly for a note-taking app and a text editor, and I didn't dive very much more deeply into plugins than I already had in the past. And there are a few of them that I really want to reevaluate because they're updated often, and I think I have some new uses for some of them. And the three that I'm particularly interested in are, well, I guess the granddaddy of these is DataView, which powers aspects of the other two, which are projects, which is kind of a database, also a database type of plugin similar to DataView, except it's a little bit more like bringing Notion into Obsidian, which I'm not sold on entirely, but might be useful for a couple of projects. And then a third one called DB Folders, which DB Folders I started.
I've heard of this before. Yeah.
Yeah, I've used it a little bit, and one of the things that I do, because I'm dealing with a lot of different people for sponsorships on the site and with the podcasts. This essentially would let me create a quick and easy text-based database for just dealing with little bits of information, whether it's information that I'm getting for the sponsorship or the people or my contacts with them. What I have to be careful about with this, I think, is that in the past, I've created systems for myself that just ended up being busy work that I didn't really need to have. I mean, I got to figure out what exactly it is that I need and what's the easiest way to store it in a way that's easy to retrieve. But I think DB Folders has some promise to it. The other aspect of this, it's very similar. It's related, is what I'm kind of currently thinking of as loose structures tightly linked, which is my new organization system, which we talked about a little bit before last week and in other places. And
is this the official name of your methodology? Are you writing a book?
It is.
Are you doing a webinar? Okay.
I am doing a webinar. Cool. And I tried to think of it in that way almost, because I was like, what's the premise of what I'm trying to do? What's like the top level organization structure that I'm trying to figure out? And to me, it's...
Are you going to do a course about this and take people on a fancy retreat?
I don't know. If they pay me enough money, maybe. But
where are you taking them? To the woods of North Carolina?
No. We'll go to the mountains. We'll go to a mountain retreat in Colorado or something really fancy.
Nice.
Something, we'll go to Vail and we'll ski. Then we'll talk productivity. Then we'll ski some more, and then we'll have a good dinner.
Okay,
all right,
but please tell me more.
All right, it's all yours, Federico, for the low price of $100,000. I'll do a one-on-one session with you. What I'm trying to do is incorporate linking as the top priority, which is not just linking in terms of URLs, but linking as in having consistency across different apps and tools that I use, so that even if it's not possible to link a file in Obsidian on iOS, I have an organizational structure in the Files app or Finder that is similar to what I'm doing in Obsidian to begin with, so that when I'm looking in that file structure, I can find things named and in similar places. So it's kind of like a really broad-based thing that I'm trying to create. And that's why it's kind of like loose structures, because there's no one tool to rule them all here. The tool is the linking and the consistency between platforms. So that's kind of my pitch to myself. And I don't know. We'll see how it works out. I'm very much in the...
I'm sold on this. I'll give you money.
All right. I'm very much in the early stages.
So this also happened last year, John. I'm realizing now that I actually have more projects for the holidays that I want to talk about with you. So maybe it's best if we split this episode in 2 parts. I think we did the same thing last year.
We did.
So shouldn't be a huge surprise to App Stories listeners. But that said, before we go, I have another thing I want to mention.
Okay, good.
And then we'll continue next week. So I want to make sure that, as you can see, this week, it's all about hardware. I'm going to talk about software next week, I guess. I want to see if I can maximize my Wi-Fi reception in the bedroom. Okay, so it all started with the PlayStation Portal.
Of course it did.
Yeah. So this is the brand new remote controller that Sony did for the PlayStation 5. It's not a portable console. It's a fancy remote viewer for PlayStation Remote Play. You don't need a PlayStation Portal, but if you want to use Remote Play, it's the nicest version of Remote Play out there. It can wake your console reliably, can connect quickly enough. It's got a nice screen, and the split design of the DualSense is extremely comfortable to hold, and I love how the buttons are so quiet. Now, you know me, I am always on the lookout for quiet keyboards and quiet controllers, because most of the time I'm either typing or playing video games with my girlfriend sleeping next to me, and she's very sensitive to clickety noises. So that's why I appreciate a quiet controller. But that being said, when I set up the PlayStation Portal, I noticed that the performance was not as good as a lot of reviewers made it out to be. And sure, I discovered a first problem, which is, I guess this can be a PSA for people out there. If you have a PlayStation 5 that's plugged into Ethernet, but maybe before doing the Ethernet connection, you had previously set up your PlayStation 5 with Wi-Fi, right? And maybe you're an Apple user. And if you're an Apple user, you're used to know that if you have a Mac and the Mac is connected to Wi-Fi, as soon as you plug in an Ethernet cable, macOS is going to automatically switch to that as its primary network interface. Now, let me tell you, the same is not true for a PlayStation 5. If the PlayStation 5 was previously configured with Wi-Fi and you plug in an Ethernet cable, the PlayStation does not automatically switch to Ethernet. I was like testing the portal in my bedroom. I was like, why is it so laggy? Why is it so stuttery? What's going on here? And I eventually figured out that even though I had plugged an Ethernet cable into my PlayStation 5, the network interface in the PlayStation 5 settings was still configured to Wi-Fi instead of Ethernet. So as soon as I manually switched to Ethernet on the PlayStation, the quality of the image improved, and it's much better. The latency is much better. It's not stuttering as much anymore. However, I am wondering if maybe, obviously the PlayStation Portal is still going to need Wi-Fi. And before you ask, John, yes, the PlayStation Portal has a USB-C port, and yes, I have tried to run an Ethernet cable with a USB-C to Ethernet adapter into the PlayStation Portal. It's not going to work.
No.
It doesn't work. The USB-C port on the Portal is just for, I think it's USB 2. It's just for
power.
plugging in. It's just power and plugging in headphones at best.
No, it has a well, maybe, I don't know. It has a 3.5 millimeter jack. I'm not sure it probably also does audio. I guess you're right.
It does audio, but it doesn't do anything else. And Ethernet for sure doesn't work. So the Portal is still going to need Wi-Fi. It's still going to need solid, reliable Wi-Fi. And now my setup at home, I live in an apartment of about 100 square meters. And I have inside the house, I have the Eero Pro 6 setup. I don't have the Eero Pro 6E. I have the Pro 6, regular Wi-Fi 6. And I have the sort of the core unit in the living room inside a cabinet underneath the TV. Mm-hmm. And then I have a satellite unit in my office, which is about, I don't know, what is it, like 15 meters away. There's a wall between the office and the living room. And the satellite is also in a small closet underneath my desk.
Yeah.
And the bedroom is from the office is like 5 or 6 meters on the left. There's a hallway in the middle, so there's 2 sets of walls, right? There's 2 walls.
Right.
Between the office, there's the office wall and the bedroom wall with the hallway in the middle.
Yeah, and you don't have a Wi-Fi router in your bedroom, right?
I don't have a Wi-Fi router in my bedroom. So my question for you, for App Stories listeners, if you are a Wi-Fi expert, help me out over here. First question, do I need Wi-Fi 6E? Is that going to help me? I don't know. I know that a lot of Apple devices these days, the latest ones, they do come with support for 6E, like the iPhone, I guess, or the latest Macs.
It's impressive. It's impressive, the speed you can get on an iPhone with 6E.
With 6E?
It's like,
okay.
Oh yeah, I can get a full gigabyte down.
Damn. See, that's my issue. So when I'm plugged in over Ethernet, I'm like, for example, I have Cat6 in my office and my MacBook Air right now goes at a full gigabit down and 300 megabits up.
Right.
The iPhone in the living room, right, in close proximity to the core sort of unit, can reach up to 500, sometimes 600 megabits down.
Yeah.
Now, when I go in the bedroom, if I do a speed test, it goes all the way down to 150, sometimes 200.
Mm-hmm.
So my first question is, do I need 6C instead of Wi-Fi 6? And the second question is, do I need an additional eero in the bedroom?
Yeah.
I don't know, because I know that with mesh networks, you can oversaturate the network.
Yeah, you can.
And I don't want to do that. So I guess for 100 square meters, an apartment with we have brick walls in Italy. It's just default how houses are built. Is it enough? Is it too much? Is it not enough? So that's what I will spend some time doing research over the holidays, I guess. Improving my Wi-Fi.
Yeah, the first thing I would try is moving the eero from your office to your bedroom. Because you don't need as much speed for your Mac. Yeah, you really don't. And a couple of things. I would point out a couple of things really quickly that I would keep in mind. One is the Portal, I think, has Wi-Fi 5. So I don't think 6E is going to probably do you much good. And 150 should be enough. I think what's more important, though, is something with the Portal isn't so much a baseline of speed is important, but the consistency and lack of fluctuation of the speed, I think, is even more important. So that's why I suggest maybe trying to put your router into your bedroom and see how it goes. I know that comes with its own baggage potentially, but that's the first thing I would try, because it's not going to cost you any money, but it will impact, I guess, your desk setup to a degree.
All right.
I think that's all I would suggest for right now. But the other quick PSA too for people, if you kind of go down this rabbit hole about Wi-Fi connectivity with the PS5, everybody should know that the upload speeds are terrible on the PS5, and it's not because you have a problem with your Wi-Fi. It's because Sony caps it. Like I was getting a full gigabit up, but down, but up, I was getting like 25 megabytes. And that's because it's capped by Sony, because you don't need as much upload speed for gaming. And I guess that helps relieve the pressure on their servers. At least that's what the folks on Reddit, once again, have told me.
Shout out to the folks on Reddit.
Yeah, we've been on Reddit a lot in the last couple of weeks for sure. All right, Federico. I think that's it for today. We'll continue this conversation next week. I want to thank our sponsor again. That's Vitally. You can find the two of us on Mastodon. Just go to vitici.macstories.net or johnvorhees.macstories.net to follow us there. And we're on Instagram, where Federico is at Vitici. That's VITICCI. And I'm at John Voorhees. JOHNVOORHWES. Talk to you next week, Federico.
Ciao, John.